So today I'm going to show you how to make homemade pork pie. Beautiful. But these are not the sort of pork pies you're going to buy in the shop, in your local supermarket. These are proper pork pies. You're going to need to do these in 3 stages. The first stage is to make a hot water crust pastry. Second stage is to make your pie filling. And the third stage is to make a gelatine filling to go around the pork meat. Now you can do this 2 ways. You can either make a pork stock out of pig's trotters, bits of pork, vegetables, boil that down for about 8 hours, or you can do it this way. I've got 1 chicken stock cube and I'm going to dissolve this into about 250 millilitres of boiling water. We're going to get that all mixed together with a fork, and all you're going to do to that is add, I've got about 6 grams of gelatine powder here. Pop that into the chicken stock and just let that set. Probably take about an hour or so. So while our gelatine is setting over there, that's going to take a little while, like I said. You're going to want to make a hot water crust pastry. Now, if you're going to make the perfect pork pie, you're going to need to make the perfect hot water crust pastry. This is what you're going to need. Let me show you how to do this. So first of all, we've got 100 grams of lard, which we're going to melt in this pan. So we get that in the pan, get the heat on. And to that lard, you want to add your water, okay? So we have got 125 millilitres of water. I'm going to bring those two now to a slow boil. You don't really want to overheat this lard. You don't want it much more than sort of 50 degrees, I guess. So let that simmer away and let that melt. So while your lard is melting away there in the water, what we're going to do is we're going to get our flour. So we've got 475 grams of plain flour here. And we're going to get a little bit of salt in that, and we're going to mix that in with our butter, as if you were making ordinary pastry. So 1 to 1.5 teaspoons of salt into that pastry, and then pop your 75 grams of butter in and work that with your fingers to form a nice breadcrumb type of mix. So there we are, with your butter and your salt all mixed into your flour. What you're going to do is you're going to get this melted lard and water off the stove straight into the pastry. And then using a fork, and get that all mixed together to form a loose dough. Okay, so the water shouldn't be too hot now. You should be able to get your hands in there and form this into a pastry. There we are. So once you've got yourself a sort of a rough pastry there, we can tip this out onto a chopping board and knead it for about 10 minutes. So with that pastry being flattened out, get yourself a plate. We're going to cover it, set it aside while we flavour our minced pork. And remember to wash your hands when you're doing this, because it is raw meat, okay, so we don't want to spread it all over the kitchen. Okay, so once we've got that mixed in, what we're going to need to do then is start to season it a little bit. So first thing we're going to do is get 1 teaspoon of salt into that pork. And then 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. 1/2 teaspoon of sage. half a teaspoon of oregano, and half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Just to finish that off, what we're going to do is pop 60 millilitres of cold water into that pork and mix it all with your fingers. You want to get it really well mixed in so that all the pepper and all the herbs and everything are all evenly distributed throughout the meat. Already smells beautiful. So lastly, over here, in the food processor, I have about 60 grams of freshly made breadcrumbs. We could get all of them straight into our pork. What we're going to do to make these pies, I'm going to use pudding tins. So I'm hoping to get 4, maybe 5 out of these. We'll see how it goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll out our pastry on a floured surface. We're going to cut out our circles and get our pudding tins lined. So we've got about 4 moulds out of this. Okay, I'm not going to push it because we're only going to use the excess pastry to make the tops of our pork pies. So what we're going to need to do with these moulds, I'm going to grease them up a little bit, okay? So we're just going to use a little bit of olive oil on our finger and we're just going to grease the inside of these moulds to stop the pastry from sticking to them. To grease all the way up the whole lot. Okay, so what we're going to need to do now is we're going to get the excess pastry away. And then pop these into each mould. Get that right over the sides so you're left with an overlap. And cut it off with a knife and then set it aside to go in the fridge with the other ones for about an hour. So while those pork pie cases are chilling in the fridge, what we're going to do is roll out the rest of the leftover dough and we're going to cut out our lids. We're going to use about a 5-inch cake cutter, okay, to cut out 4 lids. So to finish our pork pies off, we've got to get our cases out of the fridge now, get them over to the cooker where we've got all of our ingredients, where we're going to fill them, we're going to lid them, we're going to egg wash them, we're going to cook them. And so once these are all been sealed and egg washed, get yourself a knife, make a nice hole in the centre of this, okay? And this is going to be to release all the steam and also to get your jelly in once they've cooled down. So with our pork pies filled, covered, sealed and egg washed, and we made a nice hole in the centre there, what we're going to do is we're going to cook these now at 180 degrees just for about 10 minutes, just so the pastry starts to go brown, and then we'll release them from their pudding tins and we'll cook them on a baking tray for another 25 minutes. So let's get these bad boys in the oven. So our pork pies have been cooking for about 40-45 minutes in total. I've just had a quick look at them in the oven and they're done. They look absolutely beautiful. So they're ready to get out and then let them cool down. You're going to need to let them cool down to room temperature and then bung them in the fridge and let them go nice and cold. And then the last thing to do, which will be in about an hour, 2 hours time, is to add the jelly. And you're going to have some absolutely glorious homemade pork pies. Can't wait. So it's been about 2 hours now and our pork pies are chilled in the fridge, as you can see. All we're going to do is we're going to fill them with our jelly and then pop them back in the fridge. So you're going to need your jelly in a measuring jug, a small piping nozzle, or even a very, very small funnel. And we're going to get our jelly in with this. So just pop your nozzle into the hole that you made, lift it out, and then all you want to do is slowly pour your jelly in until it fills. And there we are. So do this for all 4 pork pies and then we can get them back in the fridge and even leave them overnight and check them out tomorrow, or just give them a couple of hours until that jelly is fully set.